Okay, mission accomplished. We got the extra large training pads, right? Got two of those this time. The kickstart, yes. I don't know. I love these things. Thank you, Mountain Dew. And we got the milk and we had the water flavoring packets. I promise you, if they hadn't came up with the idea of water packet flavoring, I would not be drinking as much water as I drink. But it's really active out here. And it makes me wonder, has it been this active? No, it hasn't been this active. Because I know this morning, and the days of the snow, I would get out in the backyard and I would check the highway, right? And right now there's so much snow melting so fast, right? That, I had to park next to the building because there was like a river of water, away, from the parking lot to the building. And here we got some guys, they're out here snow plowing. Even though this doesn't happen so much, it's happened more often now, to where, it's not, like a complete shutdown, right? Like it used to be. It used to be like a complete shutdown, and and those people who didn't have the reserves or the money or whatever, they were shit out of luck. Now, I know that there are going to be people out there like myself, who are struggling, and barely getting by. So one of the things that I did, because I'm in arrears, right? When I talked to my mortgage company, they had stated that, you can, if they assess that you have the money to make up partial payments, they would probably let you. Now, I also have a call into HUD. Okay? And I'm going to pursue that as, I'm able to get out more and more, or move around more and more, or be conscientious of more and more, that I definitely need some advice, right? Because this situation occurred unforeseeable, and at a time of my life where not only are jobs not plentiful, but also my health, my age, is playing against me, okay? Because I guess, they can look at me and say, oh yeah, you seem healthy enough, you seem like you could handle it, right? But, you know, they must have had some type of circumstances that where oh, he's going that way, where you know, they may have hired, you know, an elderly, right? And maybe the elder couldn't handle it, maybe even had, you know, a heart attack on the job, or you know, or it may not even be as severe as a heart attack, you know, just having to call the ambulance, right? That was one thing I never understood, you know, when I was working at no, they got her out in the middle of the road, and now the ambulance and everything is here. Yeah, that's one of the things that I was afraid of. Like, yeah, you know, I might have the skills to get out there and drive, and my car might be heavy enough not to slide. But then again, you know, because the car is heavy enough, right, if it does slide, it's definitely going to do some damage. Okay? So I stayed my butt in the house, right? I was so tempted to get out yesterday, you know, and like I said, you know, I have ran out of doggy pads the day before yesterday, because I have been used to getting out every day for an hour, right? And do my recordings, my daily journal, right? But the snow was like, if you're not getting out, you're not getting out, you know. And like I said, I'm glad I didn't get out, you know. Now, you know, because of the cold weather, you know, there are a lot of people out here, you know, who will risk, you know, driving illegally, right? No insurance, invalid driver's license, you know, yeah, unregistered vehicle, stuff like that, because it's cold out here, right? Nobody wants to stand at the bus stop when there's no shelter, you know. Even if there was shelter, it's still cold, right? Most bus stops are not enclosed at all. When I was growing up, they did have shelters that was enclosed. However, I guess after that, you know, graffiti stuff and everything, you know, then they had benches, you know, like, okay, well, we'll at least allow them to sit down. And then, you know, it was the graffiti and people sleeping on the benches, you know, and then they just took away the whole benches. It's like, fuck it, they don't get no benches, right? And so we, you know, who are intelligent people out here, whether we're hybrids or whether, you know, we're barbarians, you know, we, you know, we do things, you know, thinking that, you know, rebellion and protest and, you know, revolution, you know, is the way to go. Right? But, you know, people who are more sophisticated, more intelligent, more evolved, they feel like, a more coordinate way is available, right? So this is great. The sun and the warm temperatures is really melting the snow fast. I mean, the ground and everything is still going to be wet, right? Might freeze over if we continue to have freezing weather. But overall, I would say the incremental weather that we've had thus far was successful. It was a win. Now, I have not, really watched the news, and listened to anything, catastrophic. Um, but my mind keeps, thinking about, the gene splicing with animals, right? And a lot of it was on a quest for more power, maybe even more endurance, right? The immunity of animals, okay? And yeah, there are people who will do that. There were, even the so-called, sophisticated, evolved, elite, you know, probably experimented. Yeah. So I guess I was out for a whole hour. Um, my video is, going to be in 3 parts, but that's good. Faster downloads.